Today we're getting into the minds of billionaires. Our guest today has interviewed some of the most famous billionaires in the world, and joining me now is hedge fund manager as well as author James Altucher. He just released a new book called Think Like a Billionaire. I mean, what specifically are these thoughts that are going through billionaires' heads? Because I feel like I need to cash in on those.
Well, Emily, I think we all do a little bit. And first, thanks for having me on the show. Second, I did this because I wanted to figure out not necessarily how to be a billionaire, but I was always grappling with failure, success, failure, this volatility in my own career, and I wanted to see how do these people think maybe differently. So I interviewed dozens of these billionaires and tried to figure out what they had in common. So for instance, they all have enormous curiosity. They pick an area, like think of Elon Musk. He doesn't just say, oh, I'm interested in space.
It's tunnels and cars and batteries.
Right, but then he interviewed hundreds of rocket scientists, physicists, space scientists, rocket scientists. He really kind of got that expertise before he went off and started SpaceX. So there's a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of this idea of you can't tell me can't. So I'm sure everyone told Richard Branson when he was 27 years old, you can't possibly run an airline. You're a 27-year-old music magazine publisher. What are you going to do, run an airline? And by the way, British Airways is a monopoly. How are you going to compete? And he's like, you can't tell me can't. He called up Boeing, 27 years old. He borrowed an airplane, got a landing strip at Heathrow and JFK, and started an airline. They couldn't tell him can't. So these people figure out their way around the can't, which is usually the only place you can find success. If everyone else is doing something, too much competition. They go beyond the can't to find that success.
Oh, amazing. And so, okay, you mentioned Richard Branson, you mentioned Elon Musk. Who are some of the other billionaires that you talked to?
Well, I also talk about Tyra Banks. Her show is, its 31st season. It's all over the world, 100 different countries. One of the most successful TV shows of all time. Definitely generated billions in revenues. She, of course, was a top model, and she also saw the success of the TV show America's Got Talent. So she did what I call idea sex. She merged the two ideas to create America's Next Top Model, and then everyone told her, you can't do this. This is not going to work. Her agent said this is going to fail. And so she went beyond the can't and created this show on her own and became an amazing success with it. So that's another example. Another example is a concept I call ready, fire, aim. So Damon John, he was a waiter at Red Lobster, and he was knitting these caps. Like he combined hip hop culture with clothing. Again, this idea sex concept. And then Macy's made a $100,000 order. He didn't know how to. He was just knitting these things on his own. So he mortgaged his mom's house, delivered the order in a week. Got the money, paid back the mortgage, got the house back. But again, this is an example of ready, fire, aim. It's not like he had all these hats lying around to send to Macy's. He got the order first and said, yeah, sure, we could do it. And then he mortgaged the house and figured it out and delivered the order.
You talk a little bit about, or you mentioned it briefly, your kind of road that has ups and downs. Talk about that. I mean, what is it that's unique to your experience that really drove you here to this book?
Well, a lot of people wear failure almost as a badge, like, oh, I failed, and so now I can be a success. It's really horrible to fail. Like, I've sold businesses, and then my first business I sold in particular, I lost everything. I made a ton of money, and then I was just so stupid, I lost everything. There are 3 skills to money: keeping it, or making it, keeping it, growing it. And I couldn't keep it. I was able to make it, I couldn't keep it. And I was so broke, lost home, lost family, got so depressed enough to be suicidal. And I had to figure out, what am I doing wrong? Like, what did I do right on the way up? What am I doing wrong now? And again, understanding and looking at the examples of other successful people helped me to understand where I was going wrong, where I was kind of unhealthy in my thinking, in my practices, in my habits. And then doing this allowed me to try to succeed again. Then I failed again and again and again. And gradually over time, I learned, okay, how can I more consistently have some of these habits? And again, it comes from studying these people, interviewing them, whether it's billionaires or other successful people. Billionaires are just one type of successful person. Money's not everything. And I think it's also important to realize for a lot of these people, money wasn't the dream. The dream, like for Mark Cuban, the dream was simply, how can I listen to local basketball from Ohio while sitting in Dallas?
Yeah.
So he created broadcast.com, which made him billions.
And so for folks who want to read your book, what's the name of it? Where do you get it? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it's called Think Like a Billionaire, and it's a Scribd original. So SCRIBD.com is like kind of like a Netflix for books, and it's on that site. You can get the ebook and the audio book. It's one of the first originals they're doing. I admire what they're kind of like a Netflix for books, and they're creating this original content, and they published this book, and I'm very proud of it.
All right, well, everybody wants to think like a billionaire so they can get your book. James, thanks so much.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, still ahead on CBS.